Welcome back to another episode of All the Mod 7. Today, we are finally going to get set up to start making us some pellets and stuff to make our SBS machine. So if you don't know what that is, it is a super critical phase shifter. That's what it's called. It's a huge long name. That's why they call it SBS for short. We will not be making it today because God does it take some stuff. I like how that looks at the camera with me. Like what? Anyway, we'll be setting up our Solar Neutron Activators that we were planning on doing last time, but we needed the sheets for, as well as showing you some tips and tricks that you can do with a reactor to make it run a whole lot better and make it where you don't have to worry about it. So we're going to be doing that today. Before we jump in, I would like to say thank you guys so much for hanging out with me over on my Twitch stream last week. It's going to take me forever to make my video of my All the Mod 7 star run. Just to put it in perspective, it took 135 hours to speedrun that star. 135 hours. I streamed for 141 hours. So the file size for it is about 497 gigabytes. I have almost half a terabyte that I have to go through just so I can get the videos out. So it'll be a little bit before you guys see that, but that's okay because we got so much to do with All the Mod 7. So let's get started. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. We should be able to make this stuff. There's no way that we aren't, but here's the problem with this reactor. This is a little baby reactor. This is a little baby turbine. Like neither of these things are actually the greatest when it comes to being able to produce a lot of byproducts. So we won't actually get a whole lot of like pellets and stuff that we're gonna need. Even though we're just gonna have to make this do for now, and we're gonna save up a little bit because we need a little bit more resources before we can start actually pumping out a ton of these things. So what I'm going to do is set this up first. So all we really need to do to set this up is we need a Solar Neutron Activator, and I'm actually going to make 3 just like I did over here with the isotopic centrifuges. So I don't know if I have the recipe or not. Let's go check. We do. Solar Neutron Activator. We're going to make 3 of these, which you should be able to. All we needed was some bronze, and I'm going to let those craft. And basically I'm going to set these up right here. And what they're going to do is they're going to tap in just like our isotopic centrifuges. They're going to tap into that bottom port down there for nuclear waste, and then they're going to be set up right here. And then just like our isotopic centrifuges here, they're going to pull out whatever it creates, which I do believe it pulls out polonium here, and the polonium will then go into these pressurized reaction chambers. Do note, these Solar Neutron Activators only activate during the day, hence the fact that it's called a Solar Neutron Activator. Basically just gonna place these things down just like this, and we're gonna need to tap into the barrels. They don't need power, which is pretty cool, but we're gonna set up the piping and stuff before things get crazy. And I see my arm right here, but I didn't see my hazmat suit on, so I kind of had a mini heart attack because like if I break something over here, let's say I mess up that pipe when I'm doing it, we'll just die. Okay, we're just basically gonna die. One thing I do want to note is that you don't want to pull from this. You don't want to set this to pool. You actually just want to set this to normal and let the machines be the thing that tell it to pull out and everything like that. Because if you don't do that, what ends up happening is that if you pump in, whatever you pump in here will just go straight down. And we don't want that because then it'll mess with the barrel. So if we go down here and look, like I was saying before, down here is our spent nuclear waste. We should see, if we hold shift, you should be able to see there's spent nuclear waste, spent nuclear waste, spent nuclear waste. And these things kind of waste out. Why did I say that? These things kind of just dissipate into the atmosphere over time, which I think actually these don't. We probably go ahead and make some more, right? Let's just go ahead and make 64 just in case things get a little wild, and then we'll go ahead and tap into these a little bit more. Okay, now that I've dug out a little place into the ground here, I'm just going to go ahead and place a ton of these barrels here. And what we do, since we've already done this like this, I do want to double check before then to make sure that these aren't set. See how these are set to push like that, and then these are over here set to pull? I do have to be very careful because there is some nuclear waste in here. So holding shift and scrolling on my configurator, or just looking at the very bottom left there, you'll see that there's some words. You just want to make sure that it's not set on like wrench, because if it's set on wrench, it'll just pull everything out. So I'm gonna just shift click this, and what this will do is this will automatically disconnect it. And like I said, we're just gonna make sure that we're letting the machine tell it what to do, because what will happen here is if, like like I said, if you set that to pull, these things will actually just pull the nuclear waste straight through it and fill the pipes, and you don't want that. So we want to make sure gases are set to the front. And as long as the machines are all set like that, it doesn't really, we don't have to really worry about it, because we just want to make sure there's nothing in there. And as you can see at the top, you have empty 0 millibuckets. That's what we want to see. I don't know what just got pulled out of it. Did something get just pulled out of it? Okay, it just looked like something got pulled out of it. It kind of scared me for a second. Okay, there's something did get pulled out of it, because there's plutonium in that right there. Okay, so now I'm having a heart attack. Which one of these got plutonium? Something got plutonium somewhere. It says it's all empty. I don't know where the plutonium went. I'm gonna have a heart attack. Maybe I'm just tripping. Okay, maybe I'm just tripping. So what this does now is it'll make it where I can pull from the, oh, see how that's pulling? We gotta change that. Cool. Okay, so the reason why I have it set up like this is, one, because these already have spent nuclear waste in there. I could really mess up if I break these. What I want to do is I want to take and pump these down into these barrels down here. Okay, now that we have all our pipes, we're just going to go ahead and pipe all of these in just like this. And then we're going to lead one pipe here, one pipe here, 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 and here. So now we can go ahead and say, okay, this is spent nuclear waste. We want to make sure that these barrels are just specifically for spent nuclear waste. We're going to shift click here twice until we can pull all of that out. And now if we shift click, those barrels are now gone. They're empty. And we come over here, we can see that they all went down into the pipes and then went over here. And then instead of using these 3 nuclear or waste barrels, because they're kind of just useless sitting right there, we should theoretically be able to break them. Woo! I swear it shouldn't be this difficult. Like, it shouldn't be this scary, but you know what? It is. Every time I break something, man, I think it's about to be the end of my life, and I'm so scared. One last peek, make sure everything's good down there. I think everything's good. We just brick it off here, and we're good to go. Now we have a ton of these radioactive waste barrels, even though these act like there's something inside of there, and they don't want to stack with these. Only slightly terrified here. Okay, so now what we could do is we can make sure, first off, let's get into this machine and make sure that we do everything properly here, because this is, like I said, this is going to, we want to output in the front, input in the back. These looks like we already have this, so I'm going to go ahead and break these. We're going to go ahead and set this up underneath here as well. So just like before, we're going to go ahead and just put these across. Now you do have to pull from the barrels with the pipes, because the barrels obviously aren't machines, and they can't say, okay, here's input, here's output. So make sure that you do a pull there. You don't have to do a push here, because it should be fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and cap this back off the top here. Well, actually we got a pipe in over there, don't we? And we have it piped up like that. So yeah, we should just be able to cap this off here like this. And then we're going to go ahead and pipe these over here just like this. And we want to make sure right there before we turn this on that this is disabled. We don't want that to be like that. We don't want those to connect. So that's kind of important. See how I did it over here already? So now that I've done this, this is actually this was just easy to do, easy to set up. I'm going to put these barrels in here for now, because we shouldn't actually go through the nuclear waste that fast with this setup right here. It shouldn't actually be that much. And just to double check everything's working, we can go ahead and turn this on. As we see, it is keeping its water inside. It's burning at 20 millibuckets right now. The temperature is fine and steady. This is producing some power here, which is good. We've got plenty of fuel. We got plenty of coolant. These are now pumping into here. And if we look inside of here, we're getting nuclear waste, and it's turning into plutonium, which should, in theory, come over here, pump into these two, if I can look into them properly. Even though it looks like there's something in there, it says there's something in there, but there's not. Like, if I shift click and look at the whole thing, there's nothing in here. And I think it's probably just doing that color because it is pumping into this one, which is actually kind of weird. The reason why this is extremely important for it to do it like this is because these are actually needed across the board. The polonium pellets are actually really, really needed across the board. You need a lot more of those than you need plutonium pellets. So if we come over here and we look at the polonium pellets right here and we look at these, you're going to need a lot more of these per thing that you make. So like we're going to make the super critical phase shifter, which is the SPS, and you're going to need 3 pellets just to make one of these charged coils. You need 2 of them. It's not the biggest deal, but some of the things that we will need a lot more. Like the SPS casings take 4 polonium pellets versus just 1 plutonium pellet. So that's important to know. So these guys over here are only producing 1 every so often. It's not the worst thing in the world for this to be like this. As you see right now, we have a steady temps and it's perfectly fine, but you'll get high temperatures sometimes whenever you are like just cranking that burn rate up. So depending on how big the reactor is, the bigger the burn rate can be. So like right here, the highest we can get is 25. The one that I used on the server that I was doing on the All-in-Mod 7 run, I think I was actually pumping like 250 millibuckets per tick, and that wasn't even max. I could keep up with it with the production that I had. Speaking of production, that's going to be the next thing we do. So the first thing we want to do is we want to, instead of just being like this, right? Instead of having our fusion reactor where we have the tank in here and there's a bunch of stuff in here, we actually need to set this up to where we can actually get a ton of fissile fuel. So that way any more production that we make won't be capped off. So heading back over here to our fissile fuel production, if we come over here, this one's full, and this one's full. These guys can't make any more because all of these things are full. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. We don't want that, and we want a way to be able to store the excess if it's not being used. What we can do is we can make something called a dynamic tank. You have to use some of these things right here to make like the chemical oxidizer, and I believe, God, those guys are, yeah, and the reaction chamber. So you probably already have the dynamic tank recipe or have seen it, but we're gonna make these things. They're actually pretty cool. Just gonna go ahead and make 2 big old stacks of them, and then I'm gonna make a couple of these valves because we're gonna need them. So these things are actually pretty cool, and I'm gonna kind of scooch that over here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and rearrange this before we do this. And since we're going ahead and rearranging it, I'm gonna go ahead and build this a little bit bigger. And gotta fill in the top. Bam! Probably should put something in there, right? Bro, come on! You know what? I am kind of getting tired of that, so let me show you. I think I can actually turn that off. TB GUI, maybe? Here we go. Halloween configuration. There we go. Okay, grave plate death equipment effect. Show how, here we go, right here. Stop. Thank you. Actually, hold on. I think that didn't do it because I had to turn it. I have to stop it. Hold on. Effect. Show Halloween ghost. Save right here. This is for everybody who's doing this. Stop the Halloween ghost. It's cool for like 2 seconds, and then it's just like, bro, what are you doing? We're gonna put this here. Why do I have, hold on a second. Whoa. Why do I have an advanced induction provider? We're going to have to change that. We'll just put it down for right now. I'm making some more ultimate cells, I think, maybe. But we'll cap this off and call it a day. Boop! Okay, now we have our power and everything back, which is cool. We're going to configure one over here to output, one over here to output. And then we're going to grab that Tesseract, or not Tesseract, but the Quantum Entangler Porter. And we're going to make sure, same thing, just getting energy. It should be getting energy in here now, just to double check that it's outputting the energy on the top. Hello, energy on the top. And that's going to be input. And then this should be getting some input right here. 819K, that's about as much. That's because of the provider right now. And honestly, that's kind of oof. Oh yeah, we're supposed to be building the dynamic. Okay, look, I'm sorry. We're supposed to be building this dynamic tank, and I'm just kind of like out of everywhere. Okay, so we're building a dynamic tank for this fissile fuel. So I'm going to drag this line over here, and this, let me make sure we line it up here. This right here will be where that is where we're going to pull it out right there. And then this will be our center right here. Okay, so boop, 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 boop. What? Why are they just in my house just vibing, bro? What? He just walked. Oh, okay. I'm gonna act like that. None of that just happened. I think the top actually has to be made out of these dynamic tank blocks. That's why it didn't work the first time. Also, if your stuff is messing up like this, hit F3 and hit A at the same time. This will reload all chunks and fix any of these issues. I think it was SR Halloween who taught me that. Not 100% sure. This thing is huge. This thing holds 2 billion millibuckets. That's a lot of zeros. So now we just got to connect it from over there. Cool thing about these is you don't actually have to say this is an input or an output. It's just like, I'm a valve. That's all I do. I don't need to know what to do. Okay. Like the first time I've eaten something in the game in like 3 years. So now we need to output that fissile fuel over there. So if I come over here, type in Entangler Porter, make sure we have some. We're going to come over here and make sure we pipe in and out. So we're going to pipe this one in, and this is going to be our right here. So we're going to go here, fluids, turn that off, because just so you know, these things actually hold both liquid or fluids rather, and it holds gases. So keep that in mind. You don't want to pump anything in. You don't want to mess up and fill this with water, even though it does look kind of cool when it's got stuff in it. But anyway, let's clear that up. So just clear all of these off to make sure nothing can get in there, because the rest of them don't really matter. And then we're going to make sure that on our gases, we're going to output at the top, hit auto eject, and then we're going to set this to our fissile fuel. So click set, and then there we go. And now we are storing a cow. There's already 8 million in there. I'll take it. And this is like barely even kind of getting touched right now. So we will now be able to pull out of these things, and we'll be able to continuously make fissile fuel, which we're obviously lacking on this right here, this chemical oxidizer, which I'm not actually hurting for. Like, I don't actually mind that it's doing this. I had the same issue when I was doing my star run, and I actually had 3 of these chemical oxidizers going. The problem with that is that you burn so much uranium that you can't actually make the star recipe, which, speaking of which, let's go look at the star recipe. They said that they changed it to make it easier. Not 100% sure. They said it was a little bit easier. Let's go look. Okay. All right, that's what they made easier. These two right here were ×7, both of these, when I was doing the star run, and this was ×6. Because this was ×7, this was 48 million blackstone, and the same thing for netherrack. And when this was ×6, this was like 4.3, 4.4 millions, which is, it's not that actually that hard to get the emerald. And I'm actually going to show y'all how to get that super easy on the next episode. We're going to be revisiting an old mod that we were doing, and then we're going to have a good time. Before we do that, and before we finish up what we're doing here, now that we have a way to store our excess, so we do have these chemical tanks over here. You know, we actually don't want these chemical tanks here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break both of these, and then I'm going to take both of them over here, and we're going to empty it out into here. So if I click, I think it's here. This should, yep, that'll empty these chemical tanks out into here, so that way we can store it in there. So that will be our extra storage instead of being the side stuff. So the reason why you're doing this, or the reason why I'm doing this and why you should do it too, is because whenever you're not using enough fuel in your reactor, or you're not burning fast enough, you want to have excess. So that way, whenever you do make a bigger reactor or a larger size reactor, I got to change that because there's the mod. Whenever you do make a larger reactor, you want to make sure that you have enough fissile fuel to be able to run it. So like right now, I'm producing, I would probably say close to about 30, 40, 50, maybe millibuckets per tick. So I could actually turn that on my reactor. My reactor doesn't go up that high, so being able to have a giant storage capacity is nice. And I can make this thing right here, this giant dynamic tank 18 by 18 by 18 if I wanted to. You can make it out of structural glass on the front, sides, and all that good stuff. It's relatively cheap to make. You really just need some steel, which we have steel bees going, so that works out. Which I forgot, we want to put our lights on. Now, cool thing you can do with this bottom one is if you put it up the top like this, so let's shift click it, do like this, and it does a square like that. I really like that. All right, I'm gonna show y'all one more trick for this reactor stuff before we move on, and that is from Integrated Dynamics. So we're gonna need a couple of things here. We're gonna need a variable card. We're going to need a fluid exporter, and we need a fluid interface right here. And we're also going to need a logic cable. Thing about this is that we need, for us to be able to make these things, we're going to need some crystallized mineral chunks. I have yet to pick one of these trees up, so we're going to go find one. First, we're going to sleep though, so we make sure things are working. Look at my jetpack just going off while I'm laying down. There we go. Easy peasy. Mineral logs, this is what you want. Now I have all this. Let's just go back to the house. We're going to replace this skyroot sapling. I was using this to get slime, but we're going to use a different method later on down the road. We are going to need some dirt real fast. And then we're going to place this here and one of the mineral saplings. And that way we can go ahead and get this going, and this will produce us some of those crystallized mineral chunks by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some bone meal, and we're going to do the classic plant bone meal break. Bruh. Just gonna get a couple more and then we'll be ready to go. All right, hopefully this is enough. I'm going to delete these extra things out of my inventory real fast that I don't need, like the wide current, all that good stuff. Don't need none of that. Gonna put up the mineral logs, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and shove the berries and stuff over here and these saplings, and take my axe back because it keeps taking my... Ah! Go ahead, grab these mineral chunks out of here, and then let's go ahead and make these things. Let's go ahead and start with a recipe, okay? And then I'm just gonna request them. So let's grab these. Fluid. We want one of these interfaces, which it makes us 4, which is fine. We're going to want one of these exporters, which we're missing these variable cards because I didn't make the recipe. All right, let's try that again. Fluid exporter. There we go. Bam. We're going to need that logic cable, I believe it's called. Logic cable, I think it makes 3 at a time. Yep, so we're gonna grab those. We only need 1. And then we're going to need that variable card, which it should have already made a bunch, so that's good. So now we're gonna head back to our reactor. And I'm gonna show y'all the coolest trick ever to make sure your reactors never run out of water. Break all this water here, shouldn't be boiling anything down. And what we're gonna do is actually pretty easy. We're going to take, and we're gonna do a fluid interface first. We're gonna stick it on top of this. Then we're going to take a fluid exporter, stick it there. Then we're going to take our logic cable and stick it there to connect. Then we're going to take our variable card and right-click the fluid exporter. We're going to click on Export All Fluids. We're going to go over here to Variable Transfer Rate, and we're going to just... until there is no more space. Okay, so it says there's an X, but that's just because it's jealous of how many zeros it has. Oh, it actually has too many zeros. Okay, maybe I went overboard. All right, how many zeros did I actually give this thing? Okay, we want to go until there's at least a check mark. Oh, okay, too high. Okay, so now this is the max rate, right? Where you just hit escape, and then now you just take that variable card and shove that sucker in there. And this thing will now never run out of water. It will literally just pull like crazy. It's going to pull from the sink, and because the sink is an infinite water source, it's just going to pull like crazy. So if we click activate, this thing is never going to go down. It will look like it's going to go down because you see on this left side here where it's like a little tiny bit's gone. But if I crank this sucker up, oh, it filled back up. If I crank this sucker up, we're at 20 millibuckets right now. Right. 20 millibuckets. So we can go max is 25. Let's do max and see how max looks like. We are at a higher temperature. And 25 millibuckets, we have the fuel tank, you have the coolant tank. See, it's just barely bouncing back and forth. So instead of having a billion of these different pipes or what have you, we just have one and it just says, you know, pump it out permanently forever. Everything is exporting like it should. As you see over here, it is radiated because this stuff is constantly pumping and working. We got plutonium in here. It finally put plutonium in there because it produced too much. That makes sense. Okay, how are we doing over here? Solar neutral. All right, so it's polonium's kind of get pumping in here a lot. There is one more thing that I've got to note. You should probably store some of this polonium. Go ahead and get yourself some radioactive waste barrels. I'll just do 2 for right now just because it looks bad if I don't. And the reason why you want to store polonium is because in the SBS, so if I go to @mec_SBS, we hit U on the casing here, we can go over here. You'll need polonium and some power to make the antimatter. So you will need some extra. So don't be afraid to just go ahead and pump you some in here. So boop. And then boop, boop, and boop. So just store you some. This will put some in there over time. Not enough energy. Oh, I forgot to put energy to these things. This is why I like modular routers. Boop. And stick this in here. And now they should all have some power. All right. Now we have our reactor going to where we can continuously run it without me having to worry about it, maybe. And we have everything set up to be making those pellets and all that good stuff so we can start saving up for our SBS. We do not have the things to make the SBS or a nuclear or fission, fusion, whatever, so many reactors. We don't have enough to make the fusion reactor either, and it's going to take us a little bit of time. So we're going to have to store up those pellets for a while before we can actually go further in Mekanism to start making that antimatter. So what we're going to do next episode is create ourselves something awesome. It's what I used to speedrun like 99% of the pack whenever I did my All the Mod 7 stuff. I'm going to show you guys all of that next episode. So make sure you guys stick around, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for everything. And as always, bye-bye!